In the beginning there was Adam, the first man created by God from the dust of the earth. And then there was Eve, the first woman made from Adam's rib to be his companion. They lived in Eden, a paradise filled with beauty and abundance, where they wanted for nothing. But their blissful existence was shattered when they ate the forbidden fruit and were banished from Eden. Cast out into a harsh world, they had to learn to survive in a place that was no longer perfect, facing toil and hardship. Adam and Eve had two sons, Cain and Abel, who grew up in this new, challenging world. Cain, the elder, was a farmer, working the land to provide food for the family. Abel, the younger, was a shepherd, guiding his flock of sheep and caring for the animals. They lived simple lives, closely tied to the rhythms of nature and the land. But even in this early family there was a shadow, a tension that simmered beneath the surface. A seed of jealousy began to grow in Cain as he watched his brother Abel. This jealousy would eventually lead to a tragic conflict between the two brothers, resulting in the first murder the world would ever know. A heartbreaking act of violence. The story of Cain and Abel is one of brotherhood and betrayal, a tale as old as time. It's about the choices we make and the far-reaching consequences they can have. It speaks to us today, reminding us of the destructive power of jealousy and envy, and the importance of forgiveness, understanding and reconciliation in healing the wounds of the past. Cain, the firstborn, felt the weight of responsibility. He toiled in the fields, his life a struggle against nature. Abel, the younger, lived a more idyllic life, shepherding his flock. Their lives, though different, were intertwined. They were brothers, bound by blood and history. But their paths diverged, their personalities shaping their destinies. Cain, the brooding farmer, wrestling with the earth. Abel, the gentle shepherd, living in harmony with nature. Their offerings to God reflected their lives. Cain offered the fruits of his labor, Abel offered the firstborn of his flock. One an offering of duty, the other of devotion. Their offerings a mirror to their souls. Cain brought his offering before God, the first fruits of the harvest. He had worked hard, toiling under the sun, nurturing the crops with care and dedication. He laid them down, expecting approval. His heart was filled with hope and anticipation, but his offering was met with silence. The silence was deafening, a void that swallowed his expectations. Abel brought the firstborn of his flock, a lamb without blemish. The lamb was pure, a symbol of innocence and perfection. Fire descended from heaven, consuming Abel's offering. The flames danced a divine acceptance. Cain watched, his blood turning to ice. His heart sank as he realized his offering was not favored. Jealousy coiled in his gut, fueling resentment. The green-eyed monster took root, growing stronger with each passing moment. His face contorted in anger, his fists clenched. The bitterness was palpable, a storm brewing within. The silence that met his offering now screamed in his ears. It was a haunting reminder of his perceived failure. Why did God favor Abel? The question echoed in his mind, a relentless torment. What was wrong with his offering? He scrutinized his fruits, searching for an answer that eluded him. Abel's joy was salt in his wounds. Each smile, each laugh was a dagger to Cain's heart. He saw Abel's happiness, and something inside him snapped. The fragile thread of his composure broke. The seed of jealousy now burst forth. It was no longer a mere feeling, it was a consuming fire. He was consumed by it, blinded by rage. His vision blurred, his thoughts clouded by envy. He was no longer Cain, the farmer. The gentle caretaker of the land was gone. He was Cain, the jealous, the rejected. His identity was now intertwined with his bitterness. Consumed by his rage, his heart a furnace of envy and hate. The fire within him threatened to consume everything in its path. Cain, his face a mask of fury, approached Abel. His eyes burned with an intensity that could not be mistaken for anything but pure rage. He lured his brother to the field with honeyed words, masking his true intentions behind a facade of brotherly affection. Abel, unsuspecting, followed, trusting his brother completely. He had no reason to doubt Cain, no inkling of the storm brewing within him. They stood in the field, surrounded by silence. The tranquility of the surroundings belied the tension that was about to erupt. Cain's rage exploded, finding release in violence. His fists flew, driven by a fury that had been simmering for far too long. Abel, caught off guard, crumpled to the ground. The betrayal was swift and brutal, leaving him no chance to defend himself. The world held its breath. The air grew thick with the weight of the unspeakable act that had just occurred. Silence descended, heavy and absolute. It was as if the very earth mourned the loss of innocence. Even the birds stopped singing. Their usual melodies were replaced by an eerie stillness. It was as if nature itself recognized the gravity of what had transpired. The world seemed to pause, acknowledging the gravity of the moment. The first human life taken by another, the first murder, a dark chapter in human history had been written. Cain stood over his brother's body, his chest heaving. The enormity of his actions began to sink in. The realization of his crime hit him with the force of a thunderbolt. He was no longer just a brother. He was a murderer. He looked at his hands, stained with his brother's blood. Terror gripped his heart. What had he done? The weight of his actions would haunt him forever. God, all-knowing, called out to Cain, "Where is Abel, your brother?" God asked. Cain replied, "Am I my brother's keeper?" But there could be no hiding from God. God saw what Cain had done. He pronounced his judgment. Cain was cursed, banished from the fertile land, condemned to wander the earth a fugitive. But God also showed mercy. He placed a mark upon Cain, a sign of protection. Cain would live, but with the consequences of his actions, the mark of Cain became a symbol of sin and guilt, a warning to all who came after. The story of Cain and Abel continues to resonate today. We see it in sibling rivalry turned deadly, in the envy that festers in our hearts. Cain and Abel represent the duality within each of us, the capacity for love and hate, compassion and cruelty. They remind us that even in close bonds, darkness can take root. But the story also offers hope. It reminds us that reconciliation is possible, that forgiveness, though difficult, is essential. The story of Cain and Abel transcends time and culture. It challenges us to confront the darkness within ourselves, to choose love over hate, forgiveness over revenge. The lessons of Cain and Abel are as relevant today as ever. They remind us of the dangers of jealousy and anger, the importance of taking responsibility for our actions and seeking forgiveness for our mistakes. Most importantly, they remind us of our shared humanity, to build a world where love and compassion prevail. Let their story be a reminder to choose love and seek forgiveness.